Hey everyone, welcome back to Highly Unlikely with Josh and Jenaye. We are excited to do our Q&A with Josh and Jenaye in season 3. I think this will be our only Q&A episode.
They're always fun.
They are very fun. And so this means the whole episode has been curated by listeners, which I love.
Yeah, you guys asked some great questions. We're not even going to draw from the bowl today, are we?
No, our initial conversation starter question is one that someone asked that we just really loved, and we're going to start off with it.
Okay.
So what's your favorite smell that is linked to a memory?
Favorite smell, not just any smell.
See, I don't know if I put a favorite smell. I just put the smell that for me links to a memory.
Why don't you share yours?
Mine was, and I can't even say what the smell is. Like specifically like, oh, it was lavender. No, it was the smell of my grandma's house. My grandma Irene actually lived with her for a couple years in middle school. And just the smell of her house, it wasn't anything specific, but when I think of the smell of her house, I can picture everything extremely vividly in her house. Yeah. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I could picture exactly what her brownish kind of bumpy carpet looked like. It makes me think of, it just brings back the whole house. Her gray sweater, which, my gray sweater, which is like, I think I was the main person when she passed away. I was like, I will take that. I will take that. Mm-hmm. But when I think of the smell, I envision like the cups and plates that she had, which I have seen them in secondhand stores now. It's like probably what most people would envision. It was pretty popular, I think. But so yeah. I just envision all of that. That smell, my grandma Irene's house. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mine is like a good Midwesterner. Whenever there would be like, the Doppler radar has indicated a severe thunderstorm for Grant County, North Dakota.
Make the noise of a weather advisor.
I can't remember. I can't do it. But every good Midwestern farmer goes outside and goes, smells like rain.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, and I think it's the smell of rain. And rain was pretty much always a welcome sight on the farm. So the smell of rain evokes like definite memories for me. So
we never smelled rain on our farm.
Yeah, we did, and we always loved it. So all right, cool. Jenaye, what new skill do you want to learn in 2023?
That was a question that someone asked if you didn't realize. Okay, new skill in 2023. I think I feel like there's a couple because I think I could say. Are you going like
skill, like talent, or like
I think
skill,
you can interpret it how
habit?
You want, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like this year, it's like discipline, like self-discipline. I've hit the mic twice already. We're like 3 minutes and 18 seconds in. Way to go, Jenaye. But just. And I would say that is a skill. That's a life skill. I'm not a naturally disciplined person in a lot of ways. So that for me is the one that I've planned for. And like giving up social media was more of a part of like self-discipline and being disciplined because I wasn't disciplined with that. And but I think there's a couple other things. There is one skill I do actually need to learn, which is chess. Because my 7-year-old, 7 today, can kick my tushy in it.
He's getting close to beating me too. It's getting scary.
It is scary. So I do actually need to know how to learn without the cheater little chessboard we have. And one that I do not have a plan to learn, but would love to in 2023. There's no plan, so it probably won't happen. But the skill of playing piano, which I had lessons for like 6 years when I was little. Until the 6th grade, I guess, kindergarten to 6th grade. So maybe it would be resurrecting a skill that is dormant that I don't know is there. But that would be fun. Did I give you enough time to think of something?
I mean, I have a few. Like I played pickleball this year for the second time in my life. And I'm like, that is a skill I would like to get better at. And yep, that's probably a big one.
Pickleball.
Yeah, there's a few others, but it's kind of a lifetime sport.
It is, which you need now because you're getting there in age.
Just really, really pushing on that fourth decade, so it's getting serious.
Gosh, yeah, just kidding.
Yeah, I think that's one of them.
We're kind of starting with some fun questions.
Yeah.
But this one made me think of you because I could not think of anyone that probably is even appropriate to say on here. But what song from your youth do you still remember all the lyrics to?
There's an album that you pretty much know all the lyrics to, isn't there? Not because you've listened in the last 10 years, but
no, it's from, and I would say it's from my youth when I didn't know Jesus. Yes. Yep, there is an album.
Are you going to tell everybody, or are you going to?
Well, yeah, it's BC Days. It's a Lady Gaga album. So it's like late high school.
Are you going to give us a little?
No, I am not. But I also would rap some Nicki Minaj way back when.
Mm-hmm. You guys, it was high school, okay? Just
I don't care what people think, but it was before Jesus. So
yeah, BC is before Christ.
BC days. Define BC before Christ. So true. Yeah, I would say BC days. But you're like the lyric king.
I know a lot of lyrics.
And songs. Like every Disney movie we've watched.
Yeah.
It's like the one random song from Beauty and the Beast. And I'm like, how did you know that? What?
Do you know the one that I know all the words to and I don't know why?
What?
And it wasn't even BC for me. It was Knowing Jesus. Say My Name by Destiny's Child. I don't even know how it got in there, but it's in there. And if I ever hear it, I'm like, Dak-cha-na-na, say my name. So, I know, I don't. Yeah, well, hopefully you all still love and respect us, but that's the truth.
I think too, I just also grew up, like, we just listened to the radio in that way. Yeah. It's interesting. I
could sing a few old country songs too.
Oh, right. I feel like a lot of
not this
lyrics.
New country that's not really country, like the old
True
stuff.
country, like George Strait.
Oh yeah.
Garth Brooks.
Mm-hmm. John Michael Montgomery.
See.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is also proof of there's one homeschool curriculum that I heard about where it is a lot for like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, but they do a lot of it through song. And that just makes sense to do a lot of it through song because we're remembering these things that we're like, I don't know why I even remember this, but you're young and through song. And I was like, that's actually brilliant.
I was talking to somebody about the power of like the arts and of music, and really it is a thing. And I know there's a spiritual context to this too, but even how like people with memory loss and stuff, like music can be can bring them back, you know, and just how, so it is, I mean, now it's a good conversation about be careful what you're putting in, you know, and what you're listening to, because it really is powerful.
Totally.
In your life. And I mean, we are now today definitely more cautious about what we're listening to and what is informing the narrative in our minds.
I don't even know what. Someone said, did you see this from the Grammys? And I said, I don't even know who that person is. Like, I said, I am officially to the stage in life, and I think of also following Jesus, where I could sit next to the person that won like Album of the Year on a plane and be like, oh, hi, who are you? What do you do? Or, excuse me, can you move? My kid needs to pick up their fruit snack. I would be that person, which I kind of love, but yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, now we have a bit more serious questions, which I'm really excited about.
Okay, yeah, we're going to go from, high school song lyrics to miracles. So. Oh,
you're just going in order.
Well, unless, what's the next one?
We can go in order. No, let's go in order.
Well, this is kind of an important one right now because our church, just kind of things that we're seeing God do and the things that we want to see God do and we believe he's wanting to do has to do really with the culture of miracles and miracles being the things in scripture that you see Jesus do, the things that he said, these things that I've done, you'll do even more, and you'll see more than I've done. And so we've really been leaning into like healing and seeing people healed. And
I don't think we've been leaning into it. I think we've always been open to it. Right?
I think more open and intentional.
Okay, true. Yes.
I think this is something God is doing.
That's true. I know I wrote under the question in my preparation, like it's fun that this question was asked like a while ago. like maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah.
But like we're just living in it now. And I just want to say a couple testimonies because I think a key part of a miracle is it's about the only reason God would do a miracle is to testify of his might and power and who he is. It's the only reason. Like literally, I cannot think of, to prove, yes, he sees the person and loves the person, but it will be for his glory and that his glory alone. But we had and I can only just speak for the Women's Night of Worship and Prayer, which we had beginning of, February? Beginning of February. And a woman believes that she was healed of AFib, which is atrial
fibrillation.
Thank you. Of her heart. There's a word of knowledge that there was someone in the room that needed healing specifically for a heart condition where it would beat too fast to where you felt like you couldn't breathe. 2 women came forward and Alicia prayed for one, but I prayed for another. And I told Josh is the most pure example of someone going from very skeptical because she
having
said
no context really
and not even really believing for it, not even really faith. Again, that was from me reading her face.
Yeah.
She did not say that. So that is my interpretation. But I said, oh, are you waiting? I can pray for you or you can wait for her to pray for you. And she said, no, I came forward for prayer earlier tonight, but I wasn't specifying anything with my heart. It was for something else. And so I said, well, I believe in the Lord can do this. I believe, and the look on her face was kind of like, oh,
we'll see.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
You can pray and we'll see. And I said,
but she came forward.
Yes. And it's a cool story that I think her daughter brought her or something and wasn't planning to that night, but did. And I said, well, scripture says you only need a mustard seed of faith. So let's muster up that mustard seed and we'll pray. And just prayed. And then I got done and it was and it's just simple. I think too, stewarding a culture of miracles, if you scream pray, that doesn't mean the miracle's coming any more than if you, in a moment, whisper out to the Lord. Why did a miracle happen when the woman of bleeding reached out and only touched the garment of Jesus? So I think too, you guys, words have been really hard for me this week. Have they not? Stewarding a culture of miracles comes down to so many, I would say character things and even principles. But so it was even just a simple prayer because I was coming into agreement with the word that I felt the Lord gave. So you're just asking the Holy Spirit to do what only he can do. And when I got done praying, she just had tears coming down her eyes and just thank you. Totally different demeanor. And I was talking to you the next day. I think we were at Target or driving around. And I told you that story and I said, the only thing I can think of is that she felt something in her body. That's the only explanation in my mind I can come to. A couple days later, heard from her daughter that as soon as I laid my hand on her and started praying, she felt an electric shock through her body. And this is not a person that's been raised in this and ever even heard that. And so I love the most authentic organic moves of God where it's I love when there's no reason to say, oh, you conjured that up or you,
Right.
It's no, that's all God. And that's the most beautiful thing. That's one testimony. Another woman.
Can
sorry.
I say something
Yes.
because how you steward a culture of miracles, I think it's totally attached to a culture of faith. And having moments where somebody shared a word of knowledge, asked people to come forward. That's a step of faith. You praying with faith, that's when miracles happen. And I know our friends at James River, as God is working in the room and they're doing a service, they'll say faith is rising, faith, and you're building. And it's not emotion. It's not trying to manipulate people into that. It's here's what God is doing. And so often a culture of miracles follows a culture of testimony where you say, here's what God did and what he did for somebody else, he can do for you. And that builds faith in people's hearts. And then they believe God and then God moves. And so I think it's really attached to just building a culture of faith.
Yeah. And I think when we share these testimonies, my faith is increased. And so I know that one, my faith was increased. That same night, a woman came forward for prayer over a cyst on her eyebrow and was told it would need surgically removed. It was getting bigger. And she said over the next week, it totally drained and is proclaiming healing. And then this, I just copied and pasted a message that was sent through to my Instagram. And this would have been, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I don't know. She said, yesterday you had mentioned the amount of miracles that have been happening miracles and answered prayer that have happened since the Women's Night of Worship and Prayer. It was the first time in our 2+ years of struggling with infertility that I was prayed for and asked for prayer. We've prayed as a couple for years. Last week, I just found out I was pregnant after hearing of others.
Wow.
I know God was moving that night.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, that's amazing. And I'm going to shout that from the rooftop.
Well, and even for people listening right now, like that creates faith in your heart,
Yeah.
And so, but the Bible says that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So when you hear a testimony about what Jesus did, it can bring, the spirit of prophecy saying that could happen for you too, And so even when you hear those stories, it gives you faith to believe God. So that's part of it.
Yeah. So I'd say the first thing in stewarding a culture of miracles is humility. Because you see Jesus didn't get all puffed up for doing miracles. You see once in Acts. I had marked Acts 3. Do you know where I'm going to go with this?
I don't know. Acts 3, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. So like with Peter and John, and they healed the well, they didn't, but like they were the vessel used to heal the crippled beggar. And all the people, it says, starting in verse 9, all the people saw him walking and heard him praising God. Then they realized he was the lame beggar they had seen so often at the beautiful gate. They were absolutely astounded. They all rushed out in amazement to Solomon's colonnade. Colonnade? Sure. Where the man was holding tightly to Peter and John. So like he even is like holding tightly to them. I love Peter. Peter saw this opportunity and addressed the crowd. People of Israel, he said, what is so surprising about this? And why stare at us as though we had made this man walk by our own power of godliness? For it is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of all our ancestors, who has brought glory to his servant Jesus by doing this. This is the same Jesus whom you handed over and rejected before Pilate. And like, I just love that response. Why are you surprised like this? Why are you acting like it is us? It is God. So I would say the first thing is, and that's humility, and we've seen it, unfortunately, when God moves, and that is where people can get in this unhealthy pursuit of signs and wonders, I'd say specifically, because even in that question, what do you classify? You guys.
Just keep going.
I know,
it's
but
good.
We taught our MLC students yesterday, and this happened many a times with my words. If you classify someone accepting Christ as a miracle, which it is, because the Holy Spirit had to work, then you're actually viewing miracles appropriately, I would argue. That's my perspective. But I think sometimes we can get really fixated on signs and wonders. And then and then allow pride to enter in. So I just love this response of Peter, was really encouraged by it. So, and I love, we listened to, what is it, God's Big Story podcast from the Village Church with our kids, and they did like a whole like season or something on miracles. And they would, every single episode, I love consistency with my whole heart. And every single episode, they would say, a miracle is something that doesn't normally happen, that demonstrates God's power. And I've never forgotten it, because that's what it is. It's something that wouldn't normally happen in and of the world, but it should demonstrate God's power alone.
Right. So good. Yeah, I think humility, faith, hunger, eagerly desire spiritual gifts, like
right,
and just desire to see God move. And that's what he's looking for.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think
it's a great question.
Yeah, that's how we would approach it for sure.
Yeah, something we're excited about right now.
Yeah, so excited.
Okay, this one's about singleness. We did a whole podcast on this too, so you can go back if you want to listen to our podcast with Naomi about singleness, but staying single and how to be happy when you want to be married but can't find a godly man. So again, referring you back to that podcast, because somebody asked this question probably before that podcast was out. But Jenaye, what do you want to say?
What do you want to say?
Singleness.
You were single longer than I was.
I'll give two thoughts. One thought is make sure you're somebody that somebody would want to marry. Right. And even sometimes the problem is out there, and sometimes the problem is in here, in any situation. And so I think one of the assessments is like, am I living a life that's upright? Am I living a life that somebody would want to be attached to? Like, do I have a godly confidence and character? And, so that when that person comes along, I'm ready, to, and I don't want people to take that as like, oh, he's saying there's something wrong with me. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if while you're not with somebody, look at your own life and say, how can I grow? And
if you are to be married in God's will and you are not yet, it would mean there is still something he wants to work out in you and through you before that season.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a confident statement.
Yeah. Let me give
that doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. That just means his work in that moment isn't complete yet.
And I think sometimes we're like, well, God hasn't brought the right person, but you can also sit back and be single and stay single because you're sitting back and being single. And I would say also like, be proactive. If there's somebody that you feel drawn to, ask them out. Like,
is it okay for a girl to ask a guy out?
I think it's totally okay for a girl to let a guy know that she's interested. And
that doesn't say ask him out.
Well,
that's a different thing.
Well, so I guess I saw them as the same. But when we were dating, we also saw breaking up as two different things, didn't we, Jenaye? So
to me, letting a guy know that you're interested is like even more non-verbal, but asking someone out, like for a girl to say, hi, would you like to go out with me? Want to go out for dinner? That's a girl asking a guy out. Do you think that's okay?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Some people listening might. So we agree to disagree.
I think it's different if all the way along she's the one always pushing things forward.
And I would say if things are maybe annoying in dating, they're going to be a magnified problem in marriage. Or if you're like, we'll work this out in marriage. And actually, it'll probably be a mountain you're trying to climb in marriage. And just don't be scared of it or run from it, but like be aware and wise with it. And I think too, I just remember in that season where it was very like, well, I can't just go on a date. It's like, well, yeah, you can. But before you do that, you can't be so obsessed or idolizing marriage or marrying or a person that going on a date or one date only or two dates only and saying, I can already tell this isn't going to work. You have to know your values. You have to know what you're looking for in principles and values, not in external things like hair color, eye color, whatever. Like, what are you going to value in a person and a future spouse? Because if you know that, like what you've really set, it's really easy to go on one date or two dates and be like, oh, I already can tell this isn't going to work because of personalities or interests or character. Because character is what is still going to be there when you're old and wrinkly and saggy. That's what's going to be there is their character.
Well, I think there's a lot of people too that are like, I have a picture in my mind. I have a list in my journal of like exactly the person that I'm going to marry. And then, I mean, if you're like Jenaye Shaldall,
yes,
you married somebody that probably wasn't the picture.
Not at all.
And we have friends too who are like, oh, this isn't the person that I saw myself marrying. But when I got to know them, I fell in love with them, Or
well, and you realize, and I think too, we could do again a whole episode on this, but to answer the question specifically, staying single and how to be happy when you want to be married. And so even in that, more than you're praying for that future person, be asking for divine patience because God can give it to you. And even just coming into agreement with God, your ways are higher than my ways. So my way would be that I'd be married already, or this is the guy and he'd already be at my doorstep. But I'm going to acknowledge that your ways are higher than my ways and you are in control. I wrote down scripture-wise, which both kind of deal with possession and money, but Philippians 4, because I think the only way you'll get through it and remain happy is in the Lord, not because of our words, but Philippians 4:11, not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. He's speaking of food and possessions. Verse 12, I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty or with plenty or little. And the most used out of context verse 13, for I can do anything everything. Oh my goodness. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. But I would say the verses before are key. Like whether you have little or much, he was speaking about food or like possessions. But I think having someone you're tethered to in life or not, that's little or much. So finding contentment, and then that ties into 1 Timothy 6:6, which is talking about not having a love of money, but it says godliness with contentment is great gain. And so that would be, I don't even know the name I didn't see the name of the person who wrote this, but that'd be my prayer for you in this season, is that you'd have godliness and contentment and feel even in a season or not season of singleness that you've had great gain because of that.
Yeah, I think practically too, some people say like, well, I'm in church community, I don't know how to meet the right person, or I don't know like what setting to be in, and there's a temptation like go to the bar to meet somebody, or
yes.
And I would say like there's people that have come to me and Jenaye and said like, hey, I want to date and get married. If you know anybody that you think would be a good fit, somebody that you think is great, like, would you let me know? You know, I think that's a great thing. Like, I think of other people that have used Christian dating apps, you know, and just to get connected to that community. And I think there's other ways to do it besides, you know, compromising where the scene that you want to be in to try to meet somebody.
Someone actually either wrote us or did ask that specific question of like, I'm in the church, but I am not seeing any prospects or no one stepping up to pursue. And so it seems a lot easier just to go to Borrowed Bucks. Do not do this, you guys.
It's closed
and
now.
The Lord's like,
but yes.
Close and shop. No, I'm just kidding. And just, there's plenty of dudes and they're eager. And I would say, yeah, they're probably very eager for things that are not going to honor God too. So yeah, I still believe the best place to meet your spouse is in church.
Yep.
But just because a guy is in church does not mean he's a godly man or a woman. Let me just say that. So you need to know what defines godliness, what defines a God-honoring relationship, and not be like, well, he was sitting, his butt's in the pew or in the seat. No, that means actually nothing. You have to, character needs a testing, you know, in that. But you didn't ask me that. You asked,
I do think it's okay to put yourself out there and be intentional about, hey, I want to find the right person, using a dating app or letting your pastor know, or asking somebody out and just getting dinner.
Yeah, you know? Just give them a chance. And like, you might actually, I think I've mentioned this. I loved this about my best friend, Leah. She would just go on a date and she has hilarious stories and some kind of weird ones. But of like one date and at the end being like, oh, I just loved getting to know you. And she meant it. She did. She's great at it.
But she was good at both, like, hey, I want to keep going, or we probably won't go on another date.
I've loved getting to know you. And I do think this is a one date thing. This, I know for sure, is not going to move forward to like anything serious, but this was so fun.
In like an honoring way to the other person.
And would like say like, this is what I appreciated about you, or getting to know you. And so I just appreciated that. I didn't do that. Essentially, once I started serving the Lord, I hung out with one other dude, and then I met Josh, I don't know, a year later, and dated him and married him. So we're just very different, but we both married very similar men. Like, I was just with her this weekend, and like in how he treats her, I'm like, oh, we married very similar men. Honoring, considerate. Yeah. Okay. This kind of ties into the same thing. What is a good way to find godly friends and community if you are shy? You're going to laugh at my answers that I typed, Josh. Do you read them? Do you want to know what the second line says? Stay in church, stay in church, stay in church, be involved in church, be involved in church. Stick around before and after service. Just introduce yourself to someone. Strike up a conversation. If it blooms into something, great. If not, well, either way.
Yeah. I think show up. You got to show up. Like,
because I think too, I was that person. Shy. I wanted biblical community or godly community, but I would sneak in right before service started, and I'd sneak out right after or during the altar call. You know, the sneaky first leavers. And then it's like, oh, why am I not meeting friends? Well, yeah, that's why. Like,
to have a friend, you got to try to be a friend.
Yeah.
Too.
I do want to say, if you are shy, first of all, you don't have to contradict who you are and your personality to make friends. You still can be true to that part. Like, you don't have to become an extrovert, but you may have to do some things that feel like a stretch. But hopefully once you establish friendships, they can be friendships that last a long time. Right?
Yep.
You're more shy. You should probably answer this better than me.
Well, yeah, I think you have to put yourself out there. And I think if there are people, you have to be around enough to find people that you want to be in community with, and even if you're afraid to approach them, or like just being intentional. And I think of, in my context, just in the position that I serve in, that we serve in, to try to find the right friends, who can handle me being their pastor and being their friend, or, and just having to figure out how do I manage that. Like I feel, and I get a little socially anxious in like really large groups sometimes. And so I totally feel this, but you still have to show up when you find people that you think, I want to be in community with them. You got to kind of put yourself out there, be intentional, say, what do I have in common with this person? And how can I work towards that commonality to develop a better friendship? So I think really just showing up and putting yourself out there, even what being shy just means, it's going to be a little harder for you, but you can still do it.
Right. And I would say I've been planted in church.
I would also say being shy doesn't mean that you're bad at finding or being friends. No. It actually might mean that you're a really great friend, because sometimes people are really outgoing and they have a ton of relationships, but not a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And you might have a lot of depth to offer to the right group of friends. And so it's not that you're not good at being a friend.
Right. And I was going to say, I've been planted in church since I was 22. So it's been like 11 years of like consistently not missing Sundays, really. Or it's like weird to not be in church, or weird to not, like, that's what I do on a Sunday. And in that time frame, I've had many opportunities for beautiful friendships. And I think for some, like now I'm to the point where like, if I meet a new person, it's like, this could be a potential friend. And sometimes they're incredibly godly and honor the Lord, but you might be like, oh, our personalities do not match up. And that's okay. And so they're more an acquaintance. So I think too, like, give it time and consistency as well.
Yeah.
But connect groups, like for us, it's connect groups. We say, what is it? Church is done in rows, but life is done in circles. And yeah, I just church and sitting in a service, that's not connecting with friends like you should. And it's okay if you try a connect group and don't resonate and you have to try a different one.
Yeah.
That's okay. But yeah.
I was kind of the person who like wanted friends, but then when everybody's going to Dairy Queen, I'd be like, well, I'm tired, or I don't know if I want to show up, and I wouldn't turn up. And that was why I didn't get connected. And so sometimes that can get in the way, and you have to show up.
Well, thanks so much for joining in to this Q&A episode. It went so well that we went long on time, go figure. And we're turning it into part 1 and part 2, so be sure to come back for part 2 in the future. If you are enjoying the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, let us know what you're thinking of it, and share it with your friends. So thank you so much for tuning in today.